Hey, it's Samantha Hartley of the Profitable Joyful Consulting Podcast. This season is about consulting insights, and one of the most insightful things I ever heard about marketing communications was from Robert Collier, a copywriter in the previous century, who said that we want to enter the conversation that's already going on in our prospects' minds. And what I want to do today is talk about exactly how we can do that. It's old-timey advice. It's never truer than every second of every day. So the way that this came to me most recently was demonstrated. I was working out with my trainer. She's my personal trainer, but she also teaches a class called Body Pump, which I've been doing for about 2 years. And in the class, you lift weights, not super heavy weights, but you lift them over and over and over again until your legs want to fall off. So in this particular class, we had a barbell, which was on the meaty part of our back. So you lift it up overhead and onto your back. And then we squat down like hundreds of times in a row. You sit down, get up, sit down, get up, sit down, get up. And after a while, your quads muscles start to burn and shake and want to give out and things like that. So at one point during this workout, when my quads are just shaking and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, how much longer? I hear the sound from the front of the room. And it sounds like, ah! And that is my trainer, Cheryl, expressing exactly what's going on in my mind at that moment. Exactly at that moment, I was thinking, in my own mind. I dared not say that aloud in class, but she did it for me. So a couple weeks later, there was a substitute teacher, and I liked her just fine. But when Cheryl came back, I said I liked her, and she was, cheerful, but it was kind of like she didn't have any weights in her weights, like were they made out of foam or something? It seemed kind of effortless for her. And then I said, Cheryl, what I really like is that you make the sounds that I'm thinking when I'm thinking them. And she said, when she was studying to become a trainer and teach that class, that the leaders of the program had advised her, they'd actually scolded her one time for not making any noises while she was leading the class. And they said, when you express how you're feeling as you're working out, like, oh, this hurts, or oh, this is really hard, when you say those kinds of things, it helps you to connect with the participants. So the people who are out there doing it and feeling like, they feel like they've been seen and acknowledged, and they're having the right experience. That is exactly the thing that I want you to do when you're writing your marketing materials, or when you're doing video or any kind of communications where you're communicating to your perfect clients, potential clients, actual clients, whoever you're communicating to. I want you to think about what's going on in their mind right now, and what can we say or express that will help to connect to them. So I have 3 ways that you can go about doing that, because you always want to be as empathetic as Cheryl was when you're in communication with your people. And the funny thing is that for a lot of consultants, our clients are kind of like us. Like maybe it's you when you at a former job, or it's you a few years ago, or your audience is somehow just like you. But the thing is, they are like you maybe, but they're not you. You're going to know and have experience with things. You're going to have perspective on things that they just won't. So what's great about that is you need to go back to where they are and communicate to them at that place so that they can actually hear you. They need to have the perspective that you have, but they also need to know that you understand where they are right now and the gap between that and where they want to be. So that is the job of copywriting. That is the job of marketing communications, is for you to express, you understand where they are. So that's the first thing that we need to do. We need to understand that. And the way that we can understand where they are is to study them. It may seem kind of crazy, but again, I want you to remember that they're not you. They're like you, but not you. So let's make a sincere effort to learn about them. When I was working at the Coca-Cola company in Russia, one of the things that we would do is study the purchasers, because none of us are teenagers. I mean, we might be young. I was in my 20s, but we weren't teenagers. And so we would go and study, like, what are teenagers doing? And when do they buy the product? And when are they buying other products? And like, what are they doing? So it was funny. There was a group in Norway that actually I heard about, a little field trip they took to a teenager's bedroom, and they were like observing him in his natural habitat. Like, what does he have? What does he have on his walls? And what are his activities and things? And it may seem silly, but I want you to do that same thing for your perfect client. So, who are they? What activities are they doing? What is a typical day in their life like? When I was in Korea with the Coca-Cola company, I was doing the same exercise, and I basically went to a grocery store and I just kind of surreptitiously followed shoppers around the store to just watch what they bought and when did our products come into play in that. Like, did they go up and down the aisles, or did they like go straight to a destination and buy something and leave? All of that is going to be important to you in marketing your products and programs and figuring out how you fit in the life of your perfect client. So if this is someone at corporate, it's like, are they home right now? Are they working remotely? Are they back in the office? What are their days like? How much of their day is taken up by meetings? And what are the things that they're responsible for? And then emotionally, like, what are they stressed out about? What do they want to have happen instead? It's our job to know all these things. The last way you might have heard is that we do those is through focus groups. And focus groups are amazing. You just get people together and you ask them a bunch of questions and you kind of listen for the language that they use. And that's really the second thing that I want you to think about here is we need to speak their language. It's another one that's easier said than done because it's very easy for us to slip into our own language. So I'll talk to people a lot about using, the jargon of your profession that doesn't connect with them. If you have jargon that makes you connected to them, so like you're an IT person and you need to use these technical terms so that your person who hears you says, oh yeah, they know the thing, then do that. But in some cases, what happens is that the person who is buying from you, the economic buyer, isn't using that jargon. So a few years ago, I worked with some engineers, and when I met with them and they were kind of taking me through how they talk to buyers, they were using all this technical language. And I said, is your buyer an engineer? And they said, no, it's like, a layperson who's in this position and buying these things. And I said, well, then we can't use that language because I don't understand what you're saying. And I'm a layperson, and you're going to need to put this in language that the layperson understands. So this will go to, if you're any kind of professional thing that you're doing, does the economic buyer, meaning the person who's actually signing the check and buying the programs that you're offering, do they speak that language? Do they understand the terminology that you're using? I had got some feedback recently from one of my coaches on an email that I'd written, and it's for I have a freebie, a new free product, which is called the Definitive Guide to winning six-figure clients. And I'd written like the thank you email, when you deliver it, it says, hey, thanks for your interest in the Definitive Guide to six-figure clients. You can click here to download it, but first I want to tell you what's going to be in it. And then in my first paragraph, I was like, after you read this freebie, you're going to have a new paradigm for making your consulting business, and you're going to have this and this and this. And so the coach said to me, is that what they're asking? Are they saying that they want a new paradigm? Is that what they want? And I just burst out laughing because of course they don't want a new paradigm. Like, who's sitting, oh gosh, I really wish I had a new paradigm for my consulting. And no, you don't have that. So I rewrote that section and redid the whole email because it had a little bit of that kind of thing. So I'm talking to you today, I'm teaching this thing, and still I am sometimes writing things where I'm writing from the perspective of what's in my head and not from the conversation that is in my perfect client's head. So be aware of those things and know that it can happen to you at any time, and that's one of the really good reasons to have a coach, or at least somebody else who can read your stuff and give you some feedback on it. So I thought that was hilarious. We want to speak their language. Like, what are they saying? You know what I really want to have in my business? I want it to be an easier to structure my offers so that I can get make more money and do less work. Like, it just you should just talk to people in normal language, and that was my opportunity to begin doing that again. So I love that. So the first one we've said is we've got to study them, study this audience as if they are not you, as if they're a little bit removed from you, and be curious about figuring out the ways in which they are different from you. The second thing we want to do is speak their language. Like, how did they talk about things? I had a client recently, she's been with me 2 years, and she said, what got me in your marketing materials was without exhaustion. So my promise is I help people to double their revenues without exhaustion. And she said that was the thing that brought her in, because she'd been so exhausted in her own business. And why did I write that? Was she the only one? No. People would come to me, consultants would come to me over and over and over again, and they would say, I want to grow my business, but I'm just so fried. I don't have anywhere for new clients to go, and I don't have any capacity to grow, and I'm stuck. And so that is a perfect client for me. And so I was speaking the language that I had heard them say. I didn't make up those words. I was telling it back to them just as they'd told it to me. And that's the third thing you want to do. You want to tell it to them as if you've read their diary. People should come to you and say, I feel like you read my diary. So you want to speak their language back to them and make sure it's in all of your communications, that it's consistent. I like to have a few basic phrases that I say over and over again. Your branded language, your version of saying what we're doing. So maybe somebody else is saying, hey, you can double your business and enjoy yourself more, or, make more money and have more time off, or things like that. And my thing is, double your revenues without exhaustion. Figure out what are going to be, let's say 5 to 10 of those go-to phrases for you. What's your brand promise? How do your clients talk about the problems that they have? Do they say, we're struggling with attrition, or do they say we're frustrated because people keep leaving? Do they say we can't keep our best talent? Like, what is the way that they say that? Do they have a terminology? Again, well, I don't know how they say it. Yep, it sounds like you need to talk to them. And this is a really great thing you can do in informational interviews. So a kind of surreptitious, again, lead generation tactic is to talk to people, interview them, whether they're thinking of working with you or not. Just say, I'm talking to people in your job role, and would you have 10 minutes for me to ask you some questions? And then you can just ask them, like, what's the number one challenge that you're facing in your work? How would you describe what you're dealing with? How do you think people in the organization feel about that? So we want to get emotion words as well. And then, what are you looking for instead? If everything was perfect exactly as you wanted it to be, like, what would things be like in the organization? So you're collecting language of vocabulary to speak to them that is coming from your prospects' minds. So it's very easy for us to say it back to them. Usually, you got to watch a time or two when a paradigm will slip in there. But otherwise, just listen to what they say and then tell it back to them as if you've been reading their diary. Like, dear diary, today was a really hard day. That's the way we want to think about things. We want it to be kind of that specific and intimate. To me, that's really where the power in marketing communications comes in. So I hope that these examples today have been helpful for you, and that you will seek to connect. That's the intimacy and connection that we're looking for can really come when you demonstrate that you are paying attention to them, that you've heard them, you know your world. A problem clearly expressed means very often they believe you can solve that problem as well. If you're that familiar with what I'm going through, and you're like, you're speaking my language, we've heard people say before, right? If you're speaking my language, I feel like you may be the one to help me. And that is how we create a more profitable and joyful consulting business. Thank you.
Thanks for watching. Please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and click the bell to get video updates. Thanks.